Welcome to the Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines, your host and podcast producer. This is a half hour of power, a podcast dropping every week where I unpack the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment, quality, and much, much more. Our guests are seasoned in the field or topic of their choice, even if you've not heard of them yet. This is a non-partisan show. So while I love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate of ideas, this is not a purely blue, white, green program. Please subscribe, tune in and enjoy the politics of everything. Estate planning is at times a vexing issue. It seems like plenty of films and TV shows have shown the heated family dynamics of legacy and also money is often not exactly easy or fun to navigate. Does it need to be done differently or become less of a taboo topic? Or can we even accept that inheritance might be a gift and not a birthright? I often wonder these things, and my guest today has 2 decades of experience in the financial services industry and knows the world of estate planning very well. Bob Clements' focus lies in delivering sophisticated wealth management solutions along with tailored financial business succession and trust and estate planning services. He works seamlessly with families, individuals and businesses, and Bob collaborates with existing trusted advisors and family members. This collaborative effect seeks to comprehend clients' financial plans, providing them guidance and obviously how they want to maintain and sustain their long-term wealth. Bob's own journey began as an options trader on the Philadelphia Stock Exchange before venturing into various distinguished firms within the Philadelphia area's financial services industry. And he's earned a number of accolades, including being a chartered financial consultant, designation in 2011, and his Accredited Investment Fiduciary designation in 2015. He graduated from high school in 1994 and furthered his education, obtaining a degree in economics and business administration from Ursinus College in 1998. And I warmly welcome Bob to the Politics of Everything to get stuck into our topic today, which is the politics of estate planning. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you very much for having me.
Podcasting remotely can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Since day one of the Politics of Everything, I have relied on Zencastr's all-in-one solution to make the process quick and painless, the way it should be for those of us who just love great content and want to get our ideas out into the world. If you know me, I'm obsessed with quality in terms of my guests, my sound, and everything about my show has to be great the first time. I'm time poor. It's so easy to use Zencastr. I'm not tech savvy and you don't need to be either. There's nothing to download. Just click on the link and off we go. Zencastr is all about making your podcasting experience easy, and with everything from local recording to automated post-productions now in their toolkit, you don't have to leave your browser to get that episode done, and done fast. I have a special offer for you, and hopefully you can experience what I have with Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my VIP code, the Politics of Everything, all lowercase and one word, to get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. How good is that? I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. Young Bob, did you think you'd work in finance when you were a young kid, or did you have different dreams and hopes? Can you join your career story together for us from, I guess, when you were really young to kind of where you are now?
Well, when I was very young, I think like most kids that I grew up with, we all thought we were going to be professional baseball players, but quickly realized that wasn't a reality in the situation. And as I got older and into high school, I started to take an interest in politics and history. So I started considering that maybe a law career would be the way it goes for me. Everybody had always said that I'm a talker and I like to argue. So
there you go. You watched probably enough TV shows to know that that's part of the deal, but not all the deal.
Exactly. Then when I got to college, I just wasn't feeling that as a direction I wanted to go. I considered it for a little bit, but then I decided to go into economics, finance, a little bit of accounting. And coming out of college, I had a friend of the family was an options trader in Philadelphia, and he was doing really well. And so he started talking to me and looking to go in that direction after college. So I took a job just for a couple months when I graduated in a large financial company, just doing basic, administrative work, just to have some money while I continued to try to get my foot in the door at the exchange in Philly. So I started cold calling companies down there, mailing resumes. And eventually he got me a couple interviews and he got me an interview with somebody. And I went down and met with him. He presented me the deal and I was excited about it. There was no money in it for the first couple of months, but thankfully I was still young enough and living at home that I could get away with that. So I worked there, did a training program for a handful of months, and then started trading options. And I did that from 98 to 2003. And it was a great run. It was a lot of fun, unlike anything I ever thought I'd be doing, and certainly unlike anything I've seen since. But I saw the writing on the wall towards the end that the industry was changing dramatically, and doing what I did wasn't really sustainable. And I was, I think, 27 at the time, and just wanted to try to build something for myself in the long term. My best friend was a financial planner. I was actually his client at that time, so he'd done some things for me. So I started to talk to him about going into that field and what he thought about it. So he got me an interview with his firm. I went through, a series of interviews, got my licensing, and then went through their training program and worked there for about 10 years. And that's where they were more of a insurance-based company. And it was great for a little bit. The training program was excellent. The exposure I got to the insurance, the estate planning, and some investment planning was incredible. But I wanted to build something a little differently on the investment side of things and doing more of full service financial plans for clients. So in 2013, a colleague of mine, we left that firm, joined another one, and became more of independent financial planners focusing on wealth management, with the insurance being more of a financial tool than the lead of what we were offering. We were there for a while, and then we spun off and started our own company with a couple other individuals in 2019. Some really good momentum started in December 2019, and then March 2020, COVID hit.
Oh, that little thing.
Yeah, exactly. And
Great time to start a business.
Great time to start a business. It sent us to a grinding halt. And, I had a couple little kids at home at the time. And my wife she was a chief people officer for a pretty decent sized consulting company. So she was swamped, and I had a lot of clients calling because the markets were dropping. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So we navigated that, came back stronger than ever, and it continued to build and grow. And, we have a pretty nice offering with a handful of partners and associates that we work with. And, I love the direction that we're headed in. And it's something I'm very passionate about. I value my clients deeply, and I look forward to helping people, whether it's their investment planning, estate planning, education planning for their children, insurance. We really cover it all and work with a nice stable of other advisors outside of our company, whether it's accountants or attorneys, that we'll partner with to help bring some of their expertise to the table for our clients, and work hand in hand with our clients' advisors as well. We're not looking to replace long-standing relationships. So
that collaborative approach, I think, is what I took away from, I guess, that introduction as well. And I guess my next question is, when in life does your estate planning need to happen? I feel like a lot of people leave it till they're getting older. They have a health issue. They might be going through a major life change like a divorce. They might inherit money from parents, and so then they think about it. But is there a point when it's too early? How often do we need to worry about these sorts of things in life?
That's a great question. And I think there's two different ways I would look at estate planning. For certain people, while they're accumulating their wealth and building their net worth, estate planning can be as simple as you just need to get a will in place. You need, if you're about to have babies or you get married, you really just need to have a will in place that would control how your assets would transition if something were to happen to you, potentially protecting from taxes or the probate process, depending where you live. And just making sure that your family is going to be taken care of if something happens to you and or your spouse. So, if you're still in college or just getting out of college and starting your career, you probably, it's not critical to have it. It can't hurt. But, once you get married or start to build some wealth, then you definitely want to have an estate plan. That's kind of the first phase of estate planning and the basics of it. But as your estate really grows, and hopefully it does, that's when you want to start to look at phase two of your estate planning. Is it, having trusts in place for taxation protection, or controlling your assets from the grave, protecting your children if assets transition to them, protecting them from themselves, bad decisions, bad marriages. It's a critical piece. And then also, if you have minor children, who do you want to have take care of your children if you're gone? Everybody always assumes it's going to be like an aunt or a grandparent or
But often
someone
they're really
close.
old, right? Like that's the reality we face. So I had kids a bit later. My husband and I have had that. We've actually done our estate planning a few times. Every 5 years, we tend to review it for various reasons. And I think that's the one thing. It's like, but there's logistics, and then the kids are like in school here, where they have to move states, and there's this
Exactly.
kind of like, I guess, emotional pull to them, and then there's a reality in it. So I think that's an interesting part of what you do.
Sure. And I mean, I look at my own situation, the natural guardian for my children would be my sister-in-law, but she lives in Charlotte and we live in Philadelphia. So the thought of them having to relocate there or her having to come up here, her kids are, out of the house now, but that's a burden on a lot of different parties. So it's something you really have to think about. And even if it's someone's local and you have 3 kids and you want to appoint your guardian and maybe it's your sister or brother, but they have 4 or 5 kids of their own, are they equipped to take in 3 more? And have you done the right planning financially? Do you have enough insurance or other assets to provide for your children so that that doesn't become an enormous financial burden to them and compromise their financial plan? So yeah, I think that's a critical piece for basics of estate planning. And then as you grow or start a business, have family owned businesses, then it starts to get really complicated where you have different piles of assets, whether it's real estate business, invested assets. You may have children that are active in a business that you own, some children that aren't active in the business. What happens in that scenario? If the children active in the business inherit a $10 million business to take it over, do you feel you need to equalize the estate for the children that aren't involved in the business? And do you have the assets to do that? And then also, are you setting your family up for success long run? I know as well as I do. If I passed away without my estate plan, and my wife and I passed away without a estate plan, and I have $4 million of life insurance, when my kids turn 18, that's divided 3 ways between them, along with every other asset. I'd like to think I was extremely mature, but if you would have handed me that kind of money when I was 18 years old, it would have been bad news. So you really need to protect them from themselves, as I said earlier, and create some kind of a plan where, sure, they have access to their money for basic health, maintenance, education, support, but above and beyond that, it's protected in trust and governed by a trustee, someone that you have confidence in and would make similar decisions on their behalf as you and your spouse would. So it really starts to get complicated. And then, in America, the state tax law changes quite regularly.
Right. Yeah, there's that too, right? Because, you set and forget, but it's not really like that, I guess.
It's not. I mean, and it's a weird topic. The estate tax is something that I think, with the topic of this being the politics of everything, it's something that I believe gets politicized and talked about more regarding politics than it actually comes into play because the majority of people in America aren't subject to the federal estate tax because the exemption is so high. Um, so if so, I think it gets talked about a lot because people try to curry favor when it comes to their tax planning when they're running for office. But that said, there are quite a few people who are over that number, and there was a time while I was in this business where that number was, probably 20% of what it is now, significantly lower. So who knows what could happen in 2026 with the estate tax law. So it is a fluid situation, something you do want to review pretty regularly. It doesn't mean you have to overhaul your estate plan, every year, every 2 years, but you should pull it out every year or two and just look at it. Have my fiduciaries changed? Have I fallen out of favor with the people I've designated as guardians or trustees or executors? Have they maybe made some compromising life decisions that I don't agree with anymore and wouldn't want them being in charge of my children's money? So it's important to go through that process, and 90%, if not more, of the public is never going to do that without some kind of professional guidance. It's
Yeah.
People don't like to think about their demise. They don't worry about what's going to happen to them if they're gone until, as you said earlier, maybe there's a life event, an illness, or someone else in the family passes away and they get a little bit of a kick in the butt. But, it's important to be proactive with any type of planning and estate planning included.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how often do you find in your experience, and maybe with your colleagues and peers, you might chat about this, do estates get challenged? And is it worth it? I think obviously different jurisdictions are different. I know in Australia, it's quite difficult to contest a will or estate, if you
Hmm.
like. It's quite expensive, and you have to make sure that it's worth your while, not just emotionally, but financially as well. I mean, how often do you see that in your practice, or is that something we just reserve for the movies?
I think it's probably more for the movies because I've never really seen it. I mean, I'll hear about it every now and then with some of the celebrities who have larger estates and maybe multiple marriages or children from outside of the marriage. But by and large, most of the people that I deal with, you don't really see any kind of contestant of the estate, because it's more than likely all it's going to do is delay the process, the probate, the settlement of the estate process, and you're going to walk away with nothing other than maybe your own set of legal bills, unless you have a legitimate case. I would have a hard time seeing what that is, but if there's a pending lawsuit out there, there's things like that that could come into play. But I think it's more rare
Then
than the movies would
common.
probably portray it.
Yeah, absolutely. How can estate plan be done with the intentions you have rather than family expectation in financial planning? Like, I think a lot of people just assume, oh, my kids will, like what you've mentioned, like get equal share, or, I might choose a charity, and the people are very surprised I'm leaving money to charity when they feel like they should be getting it all. And, one thing is, I always say is it's my estate, and inheritance to me in some ways is not necessarily a birthright. It's not money my children have earned. Yes, I'll leave them
Hmm.
money, but for us and our family, we've had discussions about philanthropy and why that's important. And it's not about being super rich to do that. It's just a fact that's a values match for me. I don't want to leave everything to my kids to do what they want with. I want to make sure there's other thought that's put into what my legacy might look like. Is that something that you see quite often, or do people just generally do something quite vanilla?
No, it's everybody has a different thought on that, and I think a lot of times it comes from how you were raised. I have some clients who are doing everything they can right now to make sure they have a huge estate to pass on to their family. And one of my best clients and close friend, he's a large client, has a nice estate with a business attached to it, some family in the business, family out of the business, and he's done a great job providing for his family, educated them, made sure they went to the schools they wanted to go to. They're great kids. But his main objective is not to make sure that when he's gone that they're set for life. He considers it a burden more than help, and he thinks he's setting them up for failure in their life if he hands them a lot of money. I tend to agree with that. I believe more in the Warren Buffett philosophy of how you would leave money. It's not going to be your legacy. It
Yeah.
isn't going to be I made a bunch of my kids rich so that they
Yeah.
didn't have to work past 30 years old.
And to be honest, most of the wealthier families that I know, I have a PR agency and the clients I have and so forth, they will often have candid discussions, and they will literally say to me, I think my kids will probably just squander it. It's not going to necessarily do them any favors to say, here, I bought you a house, or here, I gave you everything. They need to also find their own way in life.
No
Sometimes
doubt.
that doesn't work.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of work with clients, and once their kids are north of 20, maybe 25,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my clients to schedule a family meeting that I would help facilitate. Meet with the two spouses beforehand and just say, let's put an outline in place of what do
Mm.
you ultimately want to have happen with your money while you're living and after you're gone. And it's, in that scenario I mentioned before, it's, he wants to set up a family foundation and the kids will be part of that. They'll work in the foundation. Perhaps they could draw an income off of it for their work and their time, but he wants them to see the importance of trying to make the world a better place. And so I think that it's critical to get them in the room. It's a lot easier to explain it to them now than to have them try to figure it out after you're gone. I feel like it helps for people to hear it from your mouth
Yeah,
versus.
isn't that interesting? 'Cause I mean, I guess when we were doing our estate planning a few years ago, my kids are younger, of course, but I remember having that moment. I was like, do we share a copy of our wills? And they're like, no, 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 just let them know that, they live with us, and, if anything happens to you, when something does happen to you, they had to contact our office. Like, they weren't a
Mhm.
fan of having that discussion.
No, and
So,
I get it. They're young. Yeah, but I think in the mid-20s, it's critical to have that conversation versus
Mm.
them hearing it from a lawyer reading out the will.
Yeah.
So, we're happy. We're working a lot with facilitating those type of meetings now and getting everybody in the same room and, playing bad cop if we have to. But, a lot of things will start to complicate that down the road. When you have a spouse, when those kids get married and have a spouse, who knows what they're hearing. And,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
right.
more important than anything, families, if you passed away and you knew, okay, I had all this money and I left it behind for my kids, and I'm so happy I did that. But you saw from the grave that these kids were now fighting over that money and not talking to each other anymore, and it destroyed your children's relationships with each other.
Yeah, you'd think of it
You
differently,
know,
wouldn't you?
you absolutely would. And so I think it's important to have that discussion ahead of time. And, it's funny, I saw a clip of, I guess it was Jerry Seinfeld driving in a car, dropping his kids off in one of his $1 million cars. And the kid basically saying, like, hey, Dad, are we rich? And he's like, I'm rich.
Yeah.
You're not.
Yeah, I love that. And that's 100% true. It's like, yeah, I recently watched a documentary of pop star Robbie Williams, and he was talking
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that him and his wife fly first class and the kids are in coach. And he's like, it's my
Yeah.
money. They're 8 years old. Like, what? Why do they need to have this? It's, there'd be some backlash, but I totally get it.
Well, you also have to manage their expectations in life too. You start flying first class when you're 8 years old. Where do you go from there? If you're
Yeah, where's the motivation to,
if
to
every
go?
vacation's at the nicest resort or private island, where do you go from there? And I feel bad for the person you married if they can't, live up to those standards for you.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
I think that you have to be proactive with all this and get out in front of it and have that conversation. And nobody likes to have the conversation. It's
No,
not
it's one of those
fun.
things I reckon you'd put off as long as possible, but it does make sense so that in hindsight it's all done and dusted. How often do you advise clients to sort of, review and regularly update their wills or their estate plans and things like that? I mean, obviously major life events, we talked about that, but is there a kind of every 5 years, every 1 year, like how do you kind of navigate that?
We'll bring it up yearly with our clients. Depending on our clients, we typically meet with them twice a year. Some of the more complex clients, maybe 4 times a year. Usually, we'll try to have a different agenda for each meeting where we focus on one meeting might be investment and retirement planning, some might be
Mhm.
insurance planning and education. But we'll at least talk about estate planning once a year. Hey, is anything, we'll have a 1 page summary of their will. Pull it out and just say, hey, look, just look this over real quick. Are all these people still the same? Are these ages you want to transition your assets to the kids still consistent with your goals? Has anything changed? And again, it doesn't have to be a whole revision of a will, but I think yearly, at the minimum, every 2 years, you should at least have that conversation to make sure that it still checks all the boxes of what you're looking for. Because as well as I do, if you go back in time 1 year, 2 years versus where you are now, I'm sure there's been significant change in your life.
Yeah, particularly if you have a business, I'm thinking, and there's economic
Correct.
downturn, or you want to exit the business and you always thought you'd pass it on to your kids, or, you might be working in farming and livestock and you find out the kids, you say, look, hey, Dad, I never want to be on this farm. I want out. So, there's all
Yep.
sorts of things that happen within a year. You're right. And it's easy to think that not a lot does change. But I think if you remind people that, you need to have these conversations, it's probably better than just hoping for the best.
Yeah, hoping for the best and avoiding it is typically the worst plan that you can have. And I don't care if it's estate planning or retirement planning. Just
Yeah.
hoping that things will work themselves out
Yeah, like
is a
your ship will
recipe for
come in.
failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it
So
never
what are
really
some of
works.
the most common things that you see when estate plans go wrong? There's some sort of, things which come to mind. It might be a really big example. It might be just a common thing which you see time and again.
I think the most common is what we just spoke about is really failing to even have a plan. Not having your plan in place or not reviewing it. A lot of people I'll meet with and say, can I get a copy of your will? And, I'll have to go back 10, 15, 20 years to even find it. So that's a big one. And then also, you feel a little bit like a doomsday advisor when you're talking to people about their estate planning because all you're talking about is worst case scenarios. What do you want to have happen if this happens? What do you want to have happen if this happens? What happens if one of your children develop a substance abuse issue? How do you want to protect their assets from them? Or if they get in a bad marriage, how do you want to make sure your assets stay inside your lineage? So you're constantly bringing up all these worst case scenarios. But the reason you bring them up is because, as remote of a possibility as it might be, it is still a possibility. And I have seen things happen where, people didn't address it appropriately. And their wishes may not have been met. And a lot of times, if you see people in second marriages, a lot of times they don't make the appropriate changes to some of their
Oh,
financial
yeah, of
vehicles,
course. Yeah.
changing the beneficiaries on IRAs or life insurance. It's a big pitfall. And then you're fighting for that money. It's just real. They're the things you want to try to avoid. Just being proactive, working with a professional. There's an expense to having an estate plan drafted. Obviously, the larger and more complicated the estate, the greater the price tag. But there's just some things that you want to pay for. And the reason you're paying for it is accountability and forcing you to get it done versus I'll just go online and try to create a will on my own. That's rarely are you going to get to that because life's just going to get in the way. I have to make a checklist or notes for every single thing I need to do, from scheduling an oil change for my car to ordering groceries. So, it's easy for something as long-term as estate planning to slip through the cracks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things that you just got to keep on it. Otherwise, it's just never going to happen, I think. Changing tack a little bit, what is your favorite business tool hack at the moment and how is it helping you?
Well, that's a great question. I don't have a ton of business tool hacks, but the new thing, so we're constantly investing in technology. And recently, because it kind of goes hand in hand with estate and business succession planning, is we've hired and partnered with a business valuation software company that has a really nice offering for our clients. It's a free service to them, but it basically, all they have to do is upload some basic documents to a website, and within a minute, they'll have a value spit out on their business. So for me, a lot of my clients find that extremely attractive because nobody really knows what their business is worth. A lot of people right now are being approached by, private equity, looking to buy their business. And nobody really understands what they think they should get for their business. So a lot of them are really interested in this valuation company that we're working with. And then also it helps us for estate planning. If you have a business and you think it's worth $5 million and we get it valued that's worth $20 million, that probably changes the level of estate planning we need to do, and also changes the type of succession planning we're going to do. How are we going to transition that to your family or key employees? It's a lot different for a $5 million, and a $50 million company. Totally. So that's been a great piece of technology. And, that's some of the technology and the AI in this world scares me a little bit.
Yeah, some of it's not there yet and too much. And I just want to keep control of something, particularly with what I do with writing and PR and information. I have a lot of confidential information which could, move markets and change stock prices. And I just don't love plugging that into AI so much. So I hear you on that.
I agree. And it has its place, but it's not, not the be all end all. So that's, we don't really do a lot in that space, but from a technology standpoint, we're always looking for any technology that can benefit our clients, whether it's, an app, a website, an investment tracking portal, electronic vaults, whatever it may be. But that one right now, we've signed on with that a couple months ago, and we're having great traction with it. It's a really cool tool.
Yeah, cool. And your biggest life lesson to date, and what has it taught you, Bob?
My biggest life lesson, I believe, I was very fortunate in life to always have a great support system. I had a family that built me up to conquer the world, that I could do anything I wanted to do. And it gave me the confidence to go for it. And whether it was starting my own business or leaving a steady job and going to work at the exchange for 4 or 5 months and not earn an income with no guarantee on the end of that I was even going to have a job. And then when I was at the exchange, I was making really good money, and I decided to leave that and go work for, about 10% of what I was making because I wanted to try to build something long term. And then I redid that again in 2013. So I just think you have to take that risk if you truly want to be entrepreneurial.
Yeah, totally agree. No risk, no reward. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a calculated risk, but it's so worth it once you get there. But you have to be ready for sleepless nights, and I know we're not on camera, but I don't have hair. I don't know if it's because
well,
of all the risk I took.
That might have just been genetics. You can't.
Let's go with that. But I wouldn't have changed anything, and I continue to want to expand and build, and I'm extremely aggressive with the direction I want to take my business in, and I just highly recommend. It's not for everybody, but if you have a desire for it, especially if you're younger, just swing for the fences, go for it. Take as many chances as you can. It's okay to fail.
How do you define your own version of success?
My success to me is having the freedom to be at and coach all my kids' games that when I can and when I want to, that I have a client base that trusts me with their most important, other than their children, their estate, their investment, their net worth, that's the most important thing to them other than their family. They trust me with that. So that's an incredible honor to me. So I think that's my version of success, is having a team of competent partners, and then a group of clients that really value what I offer them and do for them, and them allowing me to be able to live the personal life that I want to live on top of that. That's success to me more than what's in my bank account or my wallet. And I do believe in trying to make the world a better place as well.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. I love hearing people's holistic view of that particular question. Just a final takeaway message for us on the politics of estate planning.
The main thing is, I would recommend, if you haven't done it, just get something done. Get an estate plan done. Don't avoid it. Don't think, well, I don't really have an estate. I hear that a lot. I don't have an estate. I'm like, well, you have a house, you have an IRA, you have some assets, you have some life insurance. You do have an estate. And whether you either decide what happens to it, or a judge or a government's going to decide what happens to it. So I think you'd rather be in control of that. So just get it done. The more complex it is, find the right team of people to help guide you, and be proactive. Spend the time in getting it done now, and hopefully it'll save you a lot of time and money on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been a fabulous conversation. If everyone wants to connect further with Bob, there are details on those show notes. Until next time, please take care. Thanks so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed the politics of everything, I thrive on your feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network through Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects. I'm always on the hunt for new and diverse guests, so if you or someone you know has a fresh idea you're busting to get out there, please email me at amber@amberdanes.com, and my crew will get back to you very soon.